party this evening at 5:30 at the center, 1720 10th Street in Gearing, Nebraska. If you're interested in coming, we would love to have you. I thought I would talk a little bit about the stages of change. Maybe I'll see if I can flip this. Go. Now I can sit this right here and I can talk to you. There. Well, stages of change. If you are trying to motivate somebody to change, to positive change, even a negative change probably would work, but we're talking about motivating people towards positive change. In order to do that, it's helpful to know the different stages of change that everybody goes through before they make a change. So the first step, the first stage of change is called denial. And that means that you don't believe you need to make a change. And you will argue with somebody saying, no, I don't think so. I'm fine just the way I am. I'm fine right where I'm at. And that is actually the first stage of change. Because if you're engaging in the idea of whether you're okay where you are, then you are also considering the idea that there is somewhere else to be. So denial is not a bad thing. Just because somebody says, no, I'm not interested, doesn't really mean that they're not interested. It just means right then and there, in that moment, they don't plan on moving anywhere. But they at least can see the other place and they can argue why they don't need to go there. The second stage of change is called contemplation. And this one's when somebody moves out of denial a little bit and they actually start to contemplate the idea that maybe they should make a change. Maybe you're right. Maybe they should lose 10 pounds. Or maybe their hair would look better brown instead of blonde. Or maybe they are drinking too much. Or maybe this crazy rap thing really does work. Maybe they should try it. Maybe they should move to Montana. Hard to say. Whatever the state, whatever the changes, they're contemplating it and they're weighing out all the reasons to change and all the reasons not to change. And that is the second stage of change. They are not going to move out of contemplation until the reasons why they should change wait out the reasons not to change. So you'll just see them go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And if you're watching this, you can get very frustrated with it because it's like, oh my gosh, would you just make up your mind? Would you get with it? Do it already. Because when you're with them and you're talking about reasons to change, they might really agree with you on all those reasons. You might want to engage with them on all the reasons not to change also, because you don't know what their reasons are that are combating all the reasons to change. All right, so that's called contemplation. In order to move out of denial or out of contemplation, okay. When a person moves out of contemplation, what happens is they get really determined. Now, determination still is not doing anything other than getting really determined that you're going to do something. And so I'm going to walk every day. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to. And they get really, really determined. You're right. I should move out of contemplation. I should make this change. I'm going to make this change. I will make this change. And they're determined. Now in the determination stage, you'll just hear all the reasons why they believe that they should move and that it is weighting down for them on all the reasons why to move. So you want to continue to allow that process of, well, why do you want to do that? And what are all your reasons why you think you should make change? Okay, so then when a person has gotten determined enough and the reasons to change are heavy enough, heavier than the reasons not to change, then they move into the next stage of change, and that's called action. Now, most people assume that everybody is in the action stage. And if somebody shows up at your office and say they call for an appointment and they show up, you make the assumption that they are in action because they called and made an appointment. Well, they could have very easily slid back into contemplation, because if you're too much about making it happen, then they lose their reasons why they're making it happen. So it's very important that you kind of check out where they're at. Are they in contemplation? Are they in the determination stage? Or are they in action? So they're in action and they start changing. And maybe they go for a walk today and they're going to follow their diet, and they're going to go swimming. All of the things that they start to do to actually make a change. The interesting thing is people usually take about 3 steps into change, and then they exit right out and they go back to denial and they say, nope, not for me. I didn't really need to do it anyway. So during action stage, when a person gets into action, is really important where they have a lot of support and where they actually take action in such a way that it's hard to back out of it. They've got a lot of people knowing that they're taking action. They've maybe put a lot of money out for their Y membership, or they've put a lot of money out for their new whatever it is that they're stepping into action with. And when a person is in action, you can be a lot more directive. You can be a lot more, well, now wait a minute, you said that you're in action and you're going to do this and you want me to support you, so you can put a little more pressure on somebody. Then, let's see, after action, 76% of people exit action and head back to denial. And then they might go back into contemplation. So only, 23% of people actually stay in change. So we who are trying to help somebody really make change and stay in that action place, we really need to understand the pull of just because they started into action doesn't mean they're going to stay there. And we really need to stay in that supportive place and have lots of contact and keep going with them. After denial, we're actually still in the stages of change. It's not hopeless. Most people exit action and head back to denial at least 6 or 7 times before they actually change. So just because they go back to denial doesn't mean it's hopeless. It just means they're going to need to move back into contemplation, and you can start asking questions. Why, what are the reasons that they are more comfortable in this place instead of that place? And there's lots and lots of questions that you want to be asking somebody when they're in denial and contemplation. And I'll talk about that a whole nother time. And it mostly has to do with reflection. So I saw you took some action, and then I saw that you decided that, it wasn't worth it, and now you're really feeling like, you just don't need to make this change. Is that right? And people, when you ask those kinds of questions, you actually bring people back to a place of contemplation, and then you can actually move them back into a place of determination, and then you can even move them all the way back into action, depending on the type of questions you ask, and that you're not taking over their process of change. So after they get all the way back to action and they set forth in an action place again, which again, how are they going to stay in action? What are their safeguards, and how are they going to maintain it differently than last time? What do they need to do? If a person stays in action for a whole year, they can actually count it a change. They really never changed until they've stayed in action for 1 whole year. And then we move into what's called maintenance. Now, maintenance is when you've stayed in change for a year, and the interesting thing is that it becomes more habit, and it's easier to stay in that change. However, there are trigger points in maintenance that can all of a sudden set a person right back to denial, and they can exit change. And those trigger points are usually like years, 10 years, 15 years. They're usually anniversary kind of times, and they're trigger points, and they're really good to like actually figure out what might be the trigger point and what are you gonna do if you get triggered. So when I'm talking to people about this crazy wrap thing, I like to kind of identify what stage of change they're in. And if they're just in contemplation, I want to be real careful to be asking questions that kind of bring a twist to it. So you don't think this wrap thing works, but you kind of like to try it. You hear how I kind of just reflected both their reasons not to and their reasons to, and you work to get them telling you the reasons why they would want to try it, versus you telling them all the reasons they would want to try it. So that's my little talk on the stages of change, and this all comes out of Steve Rollnick's book called Motivational Interviewing, and it was developed originally to assist people to make the change from being alcoholics to not being alcoholics. Well, maybe they'd always be an alcoholic, but from drinking to not drinking. And what they have found is that these stages of change actually take place in any change that anyone would make. So just because somebody gets a wrap on, which is the action stage maybe, doesn't mean that they're going to put another wrap on until they've had some, you know, support. And so support is a real important part, and you can really identify where all your team is in these stages of change, and the way you respond to them makes a huge difference on whether you keep moving them forward in change or whether you actually can become one of the blocks that prevent them from changing. All right, folks, well, have a really nice day, and I look forward to seeing